Alright everyone, so I was asked to react to more Craftsdwarf videos, and I found this one where he talks about Aizen, Sosuke Aizen, one of my favorite characters in all of Bleach, and I always love watching videos that focus on his character, and this one should be very interesting. The whole question everything Aizen against the Soul Society. Now before we get to this, as always, guys, if you like what you see here, subscribe, share, like, comment, you know what to do, and also check the description for links to this video as well as Craftsdwarf's channel, excuse me. And also you can see spoilers for the Thousand Year Blood War arc. So if you have not seen it, or excuse me, if you haven't read it yet and you're waiting for the anime, this video apparently will contain spoilers for that arc, so you've been warned. Let's go ahead and watch this video. Oh, and as always, if you have videos you want me to watch, just let me know about them in the comment section. But don't link it, as in don't leave the actual link. Tell me the title of the video and the channel where I can find it, because YouTube does this thing where they delete links for some weird reason. So there you go.
Aizen's very first scene in the manga is an interesting one. Even before finally reading Bleach, I'd known that Aizen was secretly a bad guy, and his apparent death and reveal was shocking to a lot of people at the time.
Yeah, it was definitely shocking to me when I first saw it.
Thinking on that very first scene, it's pretty apparent as to why this might have been such a surprise to the unspoiled. Aizen asks Renji about the oddity of the events surrounding Rukia's execution, something that at first seems innocuous and natural. These are strange events and should be questioned. Yet in retrospect, Aizen is asking Renji about events he himself is inciting. Something similar happens in Turn Back the Pendulum when Aizen brings up the strange deaths in Rukongai to Urahara and Shinji. Calling attention to his machinations only risks his plans, yet he does this anyway. He routinely asks those most poised to stop him questions to push them on.
Hold on, I gotta lower the volume because there's music, and music is it's not something you can defend yourself against when it comes to copyright. So
that course of action, yet they never took the lead. Shinji had no trust.
Well, if I'm being honest, I always thought that was kind of genius for Aizen to do, because literally he's the one. Because if he's the one questioning it, then that could lead to people thinking, okay, well, it's not him, or at least the thought of Aizen being a suspect wouldn't even occur to them, because it's like, it's only natural to think, you know, if this person is calling attention to it, then they can't be the one to do it, because why would they risk it? But I think that that's what Aizen was banking on, because he knew that the only way for someone to truly be able to catch him is to question everything, literally everything. As the video says, you have to question everything. Like, there shouldn't be questions that you are afraid to ask. Like, those questions shouldn't exist. And I think that that's how he was able to get away with it for so long, because he banked on people being too afraid or not even thinking to ask certain questions.
Trust in Aizen whatsoever, keeping his distance, where Renji was stuck still.
And he even mentioned that that was Shinji's biggest mistake. Like, because he kept his distance, if he bothered to get close to Aizen, then he would have been able to tell that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell that the Aizen that was with him wasn't even Aizen himself. It was just someone else who was disguised by Kyoka Suigetsu. Now, you could make the argument that, you know, what was it? That Aizen would still be able to trick him, because Kyoka Suigetsu is just that powerful of a technique that that Shinji still wouldn't have been able to tell something's wrong. But I don't think that's the case. I think even Aizen knew, like, Aizen probably knows that Kyoka Suigetsu is powerful, but it's not unbeatable. I think he knows that. And I think he even, like, literally told Shinji, like, if you had bothered to get to know me, then you would have known me to the point where you would notice small things like my little idiosyncrasies, and you would have been able to tell that the person standing next to me, even though he looks like Aizen, is not Aizen. You would have been able to tell something was wrong. But you didn't. You kept your distance, and that was your mistake.
Hesitant to move or take action for his fears, Aizen, who wants to be understood, as Ichigo comes to realize, tried to reach out towards those close to him, but is rebuked in their failings to follow his ideology. Aizen is one who aims to question everything. In his incredible intelligence, he continues to strive to know more. to become more like the god he wishes to become. You can see him evoking his own ideology in Dangai against the Kototsu sweeper. Gin, espousing Soul Society's knowledge, insists that it's an untouchable existence that cannot be affected by Ryatsu, but Aizen responds by destroying it with his incalculable spirit pressure. The supposed invulnerability of the Kototsu is likely based in a simple reality. As a powerful being, it seemed invulnerable to those of the past who fought it, failed, and spread warnings. Those warnings warping into something mythical. So Aizen challenged that myth and found there to be gaps of logic, coming to an even greater truth. This idea of truth of understanding is one evoked even in key parts of his design and blade. Kyoka Suigetsu, literally meaning mirror flower, water moon. The name of his Zanpakuto calls attention to reflections, the appearance of something real that is in actuality just an illusion. It's also a name that calls attention to certain Buddhist concepts.
And that's interesting because, to go back to what was said, Kyoka Suigetsu being...
The name of his Zanpakuto calls attention to reflections.
Yeah, calling attention to reflections because mirror flower, mirror obviously meaning reflection, which you can see that he did right here. And of course moon, and of course, well, water, you can see reflections in water, and moon, which is just... or moon, or specifically moonlight, which is just a reflection of sunlight bouncing off the surface of the moon and then being shined at us. So yeah, again, like this just goes to show you, like, Kubo put a lot more thought into this into his writing than a lot of people give credit for.
The name of his the appearance of something real that is in actuality just an illusion. It's also a name that calls attention to certain Buddhist concepts that the series in general leans heavily into. In this case, a series of art pieces centered around the moon. The moon itself is a symbol of truth, enlightenment, and thus understanding. Yet the first of these three images portrays the moon as a reflection, the monkey watching the reflection assuming it to be real. In this image is where much of Soul Society lies, viewing the reflections put up by Aizen and assuming them to be real, from the corpse left for them to discover, to even the man they believe to be behind the reflection of his glasses. Aizen's ability is one that allows him to fool those who believe they know, when in truth, they know nothing.
よくわかったぜ。あんたはもう俺の知ってるアイゼン隊長じゃねえってことがな。もう自分の知るアイゼン
Yeah, see, that's...
残念だが、それは錯覚だよ、アバライ君。
Exactly. It wasn't the real him, it was just another illusion. It's just another... Well, I mean, technically you can't say it's a reflection because it's not really reflecting anything. But yeah, it is an illusion. It's not real. It's just fake.
Aizen's power was so effective on Soul Society because, trapped in their stagnancy, they chose not to question anything. The calm, kind, glasses-wearing captain of Squad 5 was the real Aizen to many of them, even though in actuality he was as real as the reflection on his glasses. Even when shedding this appearance, the massive differences between who those of Soul Society thought they knew and the reality in front of them kept them wrapped in his illusion. Shinji, even knowing that he was up to no good, refused to get closer to try and understand what those schemes might be. He may have broken the most basic of Aizen's illusions, but as long as he continued to assume that he'd known Aizen since he was in his mother's womb, he would continue to fall for those illusions he constructed. The one most antithetical to Aizen's beliefs is Momo, who even after having been so deeply betrayed by him, even after preparing to fight him in fake Karakura Town, still called him Captain Aizen even though he had left that rank behind. She who admired him the most understood
because she still hasn't accepted that Aizen wasn't real. Like, that was just an illusion.
Least, clinging to the image of him she loved and respected because it was easier and more comfortable than facing the painful truth. Even though he had asked those like Renji to evoke his ideas, and perhaps better come to understand him, Soul Society completely and utterly failed to stop him. Those closest to him, Momo and Renji, were too reliant on him, seeking him out for answers when he was the one creating the need to ask questions. Aizen even recognized Renji's potential to be independent, calling him a problem child, something he showed as truth by being one of the first Soul Reapers to move against the faulty systems. Faulty systems that Aizen put all the blame onto in the form of the one ruling over that system's enforcers. The one alone he sought to kill of the Royal Guard squadrons. Yamamoto Genryu's side. Having served as the Commander General of the 13 Royal Guard squadrons that he founded, Yamamoto changed much. A violent time period was only given a semblance of peace when the most violent one took power. Yamamoto made his allies from the strongest he could get, criminals like the murderous Unohana even being accepted into his fold. He was a killer, a beast of flame who commanded other killers to come out on top of that violence. But after achieving peace, achieving
Okay, I'm a little bit worried because
absolute command of Soul Society and quelling the Quincy's, there was no longer anything to fight. So Yamamoto aimed to protect the peace that had been created. And while having peace allowed him to call in a new generation, the fear of having that peace broken led to absolute rules that could not stand to be questioned, even as those he commanded struggled to keep the peace they enforced. Kurasuchi, upon meeting Uryu, insisted that his knowledge of Quincy's was perfect, that there was nothing more to learn. As a man of scientific progress, in peace he had assumed his knowledge was perfect, betraying his own ideology until Uryu showed him how little he knew.
exactly. And we saw that, of course, later on in the Arrancar arc, or the Wake of Moon arc, excuse me, when they were there, and you had his confrontation with Zayalaparo, and he basically told him that, you know, perfection as a concept doesn't actually exist. Or no, not as a concept, but perfection in and of itself doesn't actually exist, because if perfection exists, then there's nowhere really left to go. You know, like the one of the reasons why, and he didn't actually say this, but this is just what I got, but one of the reasons why people keep going is because they still strive for perfection, even though they probably know deep down that perfection doesn't actually exist, that there's always one little flaw right there that could still be ironed out, that could still be fixed, that could be addressed. But even if you do that, you'll still find something else. Like, a flaw will always exist, but that's a good thing because it gives them a reason to keep going. Because if they ever do get to that point of 100% true perfection, like there's no flaws whatsoever, absolutely pristine, well then that's it. What else is left? And that's something that he, like, always, like, I think he went against when it came to what Zayalaparo thought, where he thought he was perfect or whatever. And then he tells him, like, no, like, as a scientist, you can't believe that perfection exists, because if it exists, then what reason do you have to keep going? What reason do you have to keep learning? What reason do you have to continue to do any research? You've basically just admitted that there's nowhere left to go, and you can't really call yourself a scientist after that, because scientists, what do? They research, they learn. And if you believe in perfection, or if you believe you've reached perfection, then you can't really call yourself a scientist, because there's nothing left to learn.
Who'd broken the
Sorry
laws
about that little tangent.
society to marry Hisana swore never to break the law again to his parents, the ones of the noble clan who raised him. Yet he'd also promised Hisana that he would protect Rukia. Caught between personal justice and the justice of the world at large, he aimed to uphold the world's justice, arguing that if the respected nobility couldn't uphold the law, who would? Through this argument, Byakuya upheld Yamamoto's peace above overcoming the loss of the one he loved, the one he'd sacrificed standing within his clan to be with. A group perhaps the most stagnant is one that values strength above all else, though not exactly the strength that Yamamoto used to form Soul Society. So concerned with their power, Ikkaku and Yumichika balk at the notion that they could lose to mere invaders. A number of their traditions are even based in misconceptions. When Ichigo takes Yamada hostage, Squad 11 doesn't even care, looking down on healing and viewing it as weak. While Kenpachi in his incredible power may not need healing in the general sense, the one he looked up to, Unohana,
was a
led
healer.
Squad 4, going to healing because it would allow her and those she wished to fight even longer. Her final battle with Kenpachi being one to heal him of his weaknesses, Unohana ready to heal Kenpachi time and time again. When fighting with Tosen, Kenpachi even admits that he'd prefer his opponents not to die, since as long as they survived, they could fight him again.
Yeah, they could get stronger and they could give him a better challenge.
It's Komamura who assumes Kenpachi enjoys killing, when in reality that's just happenstance due to his immense strength. And it's Squad 11 who follows him without questioning that in the practice of his immense power, there are deep flaws he's yet to overcome. Much of how Soul Society operates in its adherence to rules first is apparent even before Ichigo arrives there, through Rukia. Mod souls were created as beings and destroyed by Soul Reapers in their act as true gods of death. but Rukia never questioned it because she never felt like it was her place to do so. When training Ichigo to fight Hollows, she impresses on him the need to strike
Yeah, I can't. Sorry.
quickly and decisively, ideally from behind, which Ichigo rejects based on how he prefers to fight. He finds out why it's important. Hollows attack those who they know, those who will recognize them, so the more time spent fighting, the more likely they can take advantage of those former connections. And yet, even knowing that, even understanding why the rule is in its place, Ichigo still does not fall in line with the rule, or any rule, just for its sake. In addressing Sora and facing him head-on, he's able to give Orihime the closure she hadn't been able to get otherwise so that she could finally see him off, something she hadn't done on the day of his death due to a simple argument. Ichigo isn't a Soul Reaper in the truest sense. He became one due to personal circumstances, and continues to act as one for his interests, even if those interests are paying Rukia back for what she gave him. As one with the abilities of a Soul Reaper, but not bound by their rules, throughout the Soul Society arc, Ichigo is the ideal viewpoint from which to see the system challenged. In his routine battles with Squad 11, even though an outsider like Ichigo appeared to have no chance against those of Soul Society, including the one called Strongest, he managed to come out on top. While the outcome seemed lucky, that he was pushed against those who might have been his allies in other circumstances was something he felt was unlucky. The systems of Soul Society pushing decent people into mortal combat. And of course, perhaps most evident of this is his climactic duel with Byakuya. Largely concerned with the integrity of the nobility, standing against criminals, the Ryoka denounced as evil by a Soul Society formed by borderline criminals as it was, Byakuya insists that class difference is what separates them. Renji is lower inherently, therefore he cannot surpass him. Though by trying, Renji was able to pierce the moon that Byakuya said he would never touch. And Ichigo, one from outside Soul Society entirely, was capable of achieving Bankai where Byakuya insisted that it was impossible.
Yeah.
For being able to challenge Byakuya, he expressed his own ideals, a will to follow personal justice over that of a system at large. For his adherence to Soul Society, Byakuya was not his own agent, but an agent of Aizen, who was exploiting the flaws of Soul Society for his own gain. Only when Ichigo put that failing up to his face did he reject societal justice in the name of his own personal justice, finally moving to protect Rukia. The incursion of Ichigo and his friends, those demonized as villainous Ryoka, pushed Soul Society to change better than Aizen ever had. While he was more concerned with destroying Soul Society down to its very foundations, Ichigo, a boy just trying to protect his friend, came to connect with those of the Royal Guard Squadron who were concerned with protecting Soul Society. Encountering one of Ichigo's friends, Kyoraku recognizes that Chad isn't the evil that their draconian systems are making him out to be, pushing to take him alive where Nanao first insists that he should be killed as the enemy he is. Ukitake, away from the start of the arc, comes into it full of questions, including one of why the Ryoka are more interested in saving a Soul Reaper than her fellow Death Gods who are putting the axe at her throat. Born as the products of Yamamoto's peace, Kyoraku and Ukitake are old enough to serve as seniors, yet young enough to share a different perspective than Yamamoto. Kyoraku in particular, the one who would come to succeed Yamamoto, comes to challenge the rules in ways Yamamoto never would have in the Thousand-Year Blood War, seeking assistance from Aizen that became of paramount importance in the final battle. Where Yamamoto saw his enemies as evil, even if they were merely a handful of Ryoka, Kyoraku accepted that both sides in any war were evil, having seen a Soul Society clouded by its own harsh judgment, having seen a Soul Society that had its peace challenged for the better. Yamamoto challenged them for standing against his peace, yet had no answer as they asked about the nature of the world's justice, only stating that all things in the world would become ashes. Recognizing the impermanence of all things, Yamamoto still holds the world's justice as though it was something eternal and unchanging, as a man who'd once burned away everything the world once was. Through Ichigo, Soul Society steadily came to change. Where Soul Society could not pass Aizen's challenge, Ichigo did with flying colors. Young and lacking in preconceptions, he understood the true Aizen better than any. Where Aizen had the ability to fool Soul Society, Ichigo's immunity to his Shikai is symbolic of his lack of preconceptions. Soul Society...
You know, I always found it interesting that Ichigo was the only person that, you know, Aizen never put under Kyoka Suigetsu, because he could have easily at any point, but he never did. And I think that it probably plays into what Aizen all this time was trying to do, which is he wanted to see how strong Ichigo would get, because he believed that Ichigo, being who he is, someone who was Hollow, Soul Reaper, Quincy, and Human at the same time, was probably someone who could absolutely probably grow strong enough to be able to actually be able to stand next to someone like Aizen, who from the beginning was just birthed with this incredible talent and this insane amount of power. Now, I've also heard some people make the argument that what Ichigo was saying here wasn't necessarily true, and that this look that let me see if I can find it. This look that Kisuke gave him was just him saying that, was him probably saying that he doesn't really believe that that's the case, that that's what Aizen wanted. And I understand why people would go more with Kisuke, I think, because he's known Aizen longer than Ichigo. Although you could also make the argument that maybe he doesn't, because Kisuke himself was also fooled by Aizen, just like Shinji. And Ichigo, the one who, who's like an outsider looking in, is probably the best person to be able to actually judge what Aizen, what his true goal was and why he, and again, I think that there's a chance that both could be true, that maybe he did want to stand at the top because he saw the Soul King and he didn't like what he saw. He didn't like that we're living in a world that was governed by the Soul King, especially the state that he was in. And the thing is, that's something that kind of disappointed me the most about Bleach at the end, is that we never got a true explanation for the Soul King, and how, first of all, how he ended up there. Why did he even let himself be there? I think one of the novels actually answers that question. I can't remember. I think it was Can't Fear Your Own World that actually does give an answer to that question, because I think it's supposed to ask the Soul Society's or the world's biggest secret, which I think is the Soul King, and why, or not the biggest secret, but the Soul Society's biggest sin or its biggest lie. Basically what they did to the Soul King. And again, I do kind of wish Kubo would have gone into it with the manga. I know some people say that maybe with the anime showing about to air in October, hopefully barring any delays, barring anything real life happening that could cause the anime to be delayed into 2023, which I really hope doesn't happen. Or maybe it already did and I just missed the announcement. I think that maybe the anime could go into that. The anime has a chance to expand heavily on a lot of the things that Kubo couldn't, because I think we all know at this point his health was just not the best, and because of that he had to try to finish it as quickly as possible. Because of that, he had to gloss over a lot of things. He couldn't write what he wanted to write. He ended up writing an ending that he was kind of happy with. Although I know some people might say, well, the anime is just going to adapt the manga one for one. Personally, I don't necessarily believe that, because we've seen anime expand on things in the past, and if Kubo has a chance to write the ending he originally wanted to write in the anime, because I think Kubo is heavily involved in this, then I think he is going to take it. Hopefully now with his health being a lot better, at least I hope it is. I hope I'm not wrong there, that maybe we'll get answers to a lot of the questions that people have had for years. I know one of them did just get recently answered, what the hell's going on with Ichigo's Zanpakuto, what's going on with Zangetsu. I mean, in the newest one shot that we got, the which looks like the I think it was called the Jowls of Hell. Yeah, I think that's what it was called, and where it seems like it's setting up another story, and we're just gonna have to wait until that story picks up, because it is set in the future. And it seems like Ichigo still has the same sword that he had back during the Soul Society arc, and a lot of people are wondering, well, what the hell's going on? I think I did a video, you can still find it. I did a video where I talked about how my theory for what's going on is that Ichigo is keeping himself suppressed because he's in the living world, and we all know that captains, anything captain and above, have to heavily suppress themselves, because otherwise their spirit energy or their reishi will start to affect the actual world in and of itself. So my guess is that what's going on is that Ichigo is heavily suppressing himself, and that's why he only has the one sword, and he can just split them in two anytime he wants, and that this sword that he has now, which looks like his old Shika, is just his new base, and that he can split them into two if he wants to, and then he could just reform them back into the one blade that we saw when he when he went Bankai against Yuha. And at least that's what I theorize, and I think Kubo did come out and pretty much just kind of confirm that. So, I mean, I'm not. Again, I don't know how I feel about that. It's I've always just liked Ichigo with the two swords, but if he can still use them, that's fine. If he's just heavily suppressing himself and this is just his base sword, then I can kind of understand that. That makes sense because it is in line with the actual lore. And the story that Kubo said that certain soul reapers have to heavily suppress themselves so their spirit energy doesn't affect the world. So it does make sense, and especially Ichigo being as strong as he is has to probably heavily, and I mean heavily, suppress himself. So yeah, it just went on another long tangent. Sorry about that, but anyway, let's continue.
Aizen had the ability to fool Soul Society. Ichigo's immunity to his Shikai is symbolic of his lack of preconceptions. Soul Society, the Arankar, even the all-seeing Yuhabak came to know Aizen's reflection, but Ichigo's first encounter was with the man behind the reflection, his actions honest, thus there was never a preconception to be had, giving him a thematic reason for his immunity to Aizen's power. And like Ichigo, through challenging Rukia and Soul Society's rules, by challenging truths and finding new ones, a new truth also opens up more opportunities to learn, and that was Aizen's failing. Where his sword is named for the illusory moon, with Ichigo's Zangetsu, meaning moon cutter, Ichigo targets the true moon, bypassing his illusions to seek true understanding. To return back to the artwork mentioned earlier, while Soul Society was made up of monkeys looking at the moon and the water, Aizen, in pushing Renji and Shinji to question things, was Priest Hote, pointing at the moon. This image is meant to signify the gap between knowing and understanding. While the viewer can know that he is pointing to the moon, knowing that it is there is not the same as finding and seeing the moon for oneself, and understanding it. In Renji's reliance on Aizen and Shinji's distrust, they were unable to reach the understanding that Aizen tried to guide them to. And yet, the nature of understanding was one Aizen himself did not fully understand. In the final image, the moon is represented as a circle, one with a clear beginning and end, looping in on itself. Understanding is not an end unto itself, but also a path to return to the cycle of understanding and continue to question things, now even more knowledgeable. In destroying the Kototsu, while Aizen found a new truth, Ichigo would take advantage of another. The Kototsu's destruction made the Dangai's nature as a space outside of time exploitable, allowing Ichigo and Isshin the time to prepare for the battle ahead. In assuming that by challenging
So this is interesting, but I do kind of wonder if maybe Aizen kind of did that on purpose, like other than just being able to challenge a preconception of the Soul Society or the world in and of itself. I wonder if maybe he did that because he knew that Ichigo would take advantage of it to train and to get stronger, and that's kind of what he wanted, or if maybe that was just a happy accident.
of time exploitable, allowing Ichigo
Although he did say to I think, what was her name, Tatsuki, he did say that Ichigo is on his way, and I have no doubt he'll have new powers. So I don't know, maybe he did do it on purpose.
and Isshin the time to prepare for the battle ahead. In assuming that by challenging everything and learning new truths, he would stand atop all others, Aizen proudly fell into the ignorance he fought against, not realizing that there might be a reason that the Dangai had something like the Kototsu to keep people out of this space of warped time. In his quest to stand above other humans as God, he aims to achieve a perfection that limits him from understanding and being understood. Ichigo not only surpassing Aizen's challenge, but coming to understand Aizen like no one else ever had.
By the way, I'm still not a fan of this ending, if I'm being honest. I think if you guys have been if you're watching this and you've been following me for a while, you already know this, but
This video was edited by someone I paid. I was able to pay them thanks to my patrons, such as Flarbu, Moz, Mr. Cynical, Thanks Naturorad, Bayanort, Gloogle, Brorike.
okay, so yeah, there's the video, and again, like I don't disagree with a lot of the things that were said here, and this to me just it it reminded me why I think that Bleach is I don't think Bleach is given the credit that it needs, or that, or excuse me, not that it needs, that it deserves. And I also think that Kubo doesn't get enough credit for being a writer. It's just because when you look into Bleach, you'll see that there's a lot more thought put into this series than you think. And Aizen again is just I love this character. There's a reason why he's oh hey look, Matthew is one of his patrons. Nice. I also love how what was I gonna say? Uh Shit. All right, never mind. Forget it. It's gone. Anyway, if you guys enjoy these videos and what I do here, please like, share, subscribe. Especially subscribe, guys. We are really close, and if you're watching this and you are subscribed, seriously guys, I can't thank you guys enough for your support. I really hope you'll continue to support me in the future so I can bring you guys more content, and I hope I get to a point where I can like bring you guys more content other than just reactions and discussion videos, because I am planning to try to expand the kind of content that I make here on this channel so you guys can get some more videos that'll hopefully keep you entertained for at least a few minutes and help you maybe like forget what's going on, in the outside world. Anyway, with that being said, guys, again, remember, like, share, subscribe, and especially comment, because the YouTube algorithm just loves those things. Any videos with lots of comments, likes, and I guess being shared on the social media platforms. And remember to check the description for links, and if you have your own videos you want me to watch, just let me know about them in the comments. Thank you guys again. I hope you enjoyed it, and bye for now.